What we've got here is FSO Polonez truck. Yes, it's called a truck, and it's a truck. It's 1997, based on Caro model, passenger version from 1992, and FSO Polonez as such went into production, I think, in 1978 until 2002, so 24 years, yeah, in production with various changes. So truck, first version of truck was shown somewhere in late 80s, based on older model, and as I said, this one is from 1997 and is based on the Caro model from 1992. Or actually a bit later modification with wider axle. Yeah. Technically, this is not exactly FSO, which stands for Fabryka Samochodów Osobowych. That literally means passenger car factory. This is DU FSO, because after the transformation in '89, right after the communism has ended, FSO was of course in trouble, and around, I do not recall exactly, 96 maybe, DU bought a major part of FSO or something like that, and this car was then rebadged to DU FSO, although it still has the badge of FSO on the front grille. This is the version LB, which stands for long bed, because it has the longest available bed size, which is exactly 252 centimeters, 2.5 meters. And it had, of course, this fiberglass box there, but we took this out, and you can still see here this part. It's also fiberglass, which goes on the roof for aerodynamics. Ooh. Yeah, and look what happens when you have this there for 20 years or so on both sides of the roof, and of course in the rear as well. Yeah, and this car is a proper rust bucket. There are more holes to be addressed, like this one here, and another one there, and few other. Yeah, but believe me, it's actually not such a bad condition. I've seen much worse of those. We've already took out the engine, and it is sitting right over here. And from the engine we can start explaining why we are actually choosing this car for a new project car. Alright, so this is a 1.6 liter overhead valve, not cam. Yep, you've heard me right. It actually has the camshaft in the engine block. The history of that particular engine is quite long. As I said, this car was produced until 2002, and first version of this engine, 1.3 liter and 1.5 liter, actually came out in 1961 in Fiat 1300 and 1500, and why it actually ended up also here. Somewhere in the 60s, Poland has bought a license for Fiat 125, but it wasn't exactly Fiat 125. What Italians actually sold us was the, let's say, the chassis of Fiat 125, but the suspension and engines and the whole drivetrain was actually coming from the older version, this 1300/1500. And although Polonez is much newer design, it actually also inherits this the same engine from early 60s. And this is just a modification done later in Poland, so it's overboard a little to 1.6 liter. This is actually the single point injection version, Before that, there were, of course, carburetor versions, and there is also a multi-point injection version that we also have, and it sits somewhere over there on this rack there, on the shelf, but this is another story. I will tell that later. This engine starts the explanation why this car. So, overhead valve. What else comes to your mind when you think about overhead valve? Of course, pretty much all American V8s, right? So this is almost a V8. Okay, granted it has like half of the cylinders and quarter of the displacement, but basically the same thing, right? Push rods and camshaft in the engine block and so on and so on. Yeah, it's almost like V8. People hate that particular engine because the main reason that they give is that the crankshaft has only 3 supports. But actually what kills those engines, I don't think is this is the main problem. The main issue was that people used really shitty oil, as you can see, or did not change the oil like ever, and that's what actually was killing those engines, not those 3 supports probably. So we wanted to actually show that something still can be done with this engine and that you can make more power out of that, which there are a few successful projects with a turbo. A turbo is not the thing that we're going to do. We know already that the engine is almost a V8. Now, the construction of this car is still based on this Fiat 125P, the Polski Fiat, which originates from Fiat 1300/1500, which means it has leaf springs in the back, yep, and double wishbone in the front, yeah, double control arm, which means this is actually built exactly like proper muscle cars from 60s and 70s, or muscle trucks, right? We're coming to the conclusion. What we want to do is take this proper 60 V8-like engine, put it back here, and put force induction. But how do you make force induction on V8? Of course, by using a supercharger, not a turbo. So we're going to put a supercharger on top of that. That will be, like sticking out from the bonnet, from the hood, and it will have a nice scoop with 2 or 3 butterfly valves, like throttles, like in those classic muscle cars / muscle trucks from Texas and so on, yeah, like South US. And that's why the code name for this project is Czerwony Kark, which I'll leave to you to Google what it actually means in English. Yeah, it will be awesome! So here are the leaf springs in the back. And one thing that I forgot to mention, this is of course a rear-wheel drive. Exactly like a proper muscle truck should be. Yeah. And before you start to complain, oh man, but this is like a monocoque body, it's not a frame one like on the proper American truck or muscle car. Okay, hear me out. It's true that the front of the car is a monocoque, yeah, it's a mono chassis, but when you look at the rear, you will see that the rear part is actually put on a frame, and a quite good one, I would say, in good condition and quite rigid. And it is connected to the front of the body via those 2 pieces of metal on both sides. So actually, those are known to crack like here in the middle when people were overloading those. So we'll probably reinforce that a little bit. So anyway, as I said, the bed head is 252 centimeters, 2.5 meters, and the whole car is about 5 meters, which means that actually half of the car has a frame, which means it is at least half of a truck. yeah, of a proper truck. Of course it is. This is how the engine bay looks like, and this is interesting one. It's called urine bag, basically, in the jargon. This was used for holding the sprinklers fluid. Why they did it as a bag, who knows. This is how it looks inside. Here you have the Daewoo FSO. This is much newer model, right? So it looks sort of normally, I would say. Well, at least the I was going to say air conditioning. Of course, this one does not have the air conditioning. So just the blower panel looks okay, I guess. Those buttons also look okay, sort of 90s. But here you have something that you can see in pretty much all Polish-made cars. This old Fiat buttons like that. Yeah, you could have plenty of those, and the older version of the dashboard, you had those all over the place. You will also notice that we don't have the side covers for the doors, and the reason for that is that the guy I've bought this car from actually already started to sell parts from it. He was planning to sell the whole car for parts, but fortunately he only sold those side covers and doors for this fiberglass box, but I don't care really about that one. So right now the car is like 245,000 kilometers, which might be true, I guess, but it's really, we don't care about that too much. We will also definitely need to change this steering wheel because it's awful and very big, which makes the position where you're sitting here quite bizarre, at least. What else? Yeah, the whole car was around, I believe, 350 euros, something like that. So, well, it's a rust bucket, so you can say it's a lot, but on the other hand, this maybe in some near future become some kind of a young timer or something. Maybe, I don't know. Who cares? But anyway, I think for this condition, which means not that much rust, I think it's still okay. It was not a bad price. I've seen at least few with double, triple, or even quadruple the price, pretty much in the same condition, so not that bad. So that's the story of our new project car. I hope you will like it and that we will manage to finish this in shorter time than the Seicento. Soon I will dismantle disassembly this second engine to see what we are standing on and what will need to change. There are a few parts still available for that car, but fewer and fewer because it's becoming a bit old. There are some oversized pistons and so on, but not that easy to find already. So it's the last call to do it. It's not like the aftermarket V8 world really. So, but let's hope for the best and see you next time.